Good day, everyone. I'm Bill Green, a longtime congregant here at Trinity Episcopal Church, and Rector Peter Swore and I came up with the idea of interviewing some of our senior congregants, I guess, and one of our most beloved is Barbara McLellan, who's joining us today. Barbara, thanks so much. How long have you been coming to Trinity Episcopal Church?
I've been coming to Trinity since 1955, but I am a cradle Episcopalian. Wow. And before this went to St. Luke's.
Now, was your dad and also your mom, were they also Episcopalians?
Yes, yes.
How far back does that Episcopalianism go?
Well, at least my father, his mother too, and probably prior to that, but I don't honestly know.
Yeah.
But
what street you live on growing up?
Cherry Street, which is down near Union Station.
Oh my goodness.
Which used to be Union Station.
Were you around when they tore Union Station down?
Oh, yes, and that was a sad day.
Heartbreaking.
Yes, it certainly was.
Yeah. Now, you married Bob because we all loved Robert, right?
Yes.
We called him Bob.
I called him Robert. His mother called him Robert, so I did.
All right, I probably should have too. And you have 3 children.
Yes.
Who's the oldest?
Nancy.
Nancy.
Robert Jr.
Yep.
And Ralph.
Yep.
Is the youngest.
And unlike me, you have kids that go to church.
Yes, I do.
Isn't that great?
I'm really pleased that there aren't too many in the church that have family that still goes.
Yep.
However, we're losing the grandchildren.
Yep.
They don't have the same affinity for church and so forth.
It's a tough world for young kids coming to church.
There's so many things that go on Sunday morning.
Soccer.
Yes. Practices and games and so forth.
Yeah.
So, but
I got in trouble one time on TV because I said something bad on Sunday morning, and it was on tape, and it came back and played on a Sunday morning.
Oops.
Nobody complained because everybody was in church or watching. I think it was Jerry Falwell or somebody else on the other channel.
Yes,
and we had a bowling show, and so I got away with it because. But now times have changed.
Except for the fact that now we don't have to come to church because you're taping it, and
is that a good thing or a bad thing?
it's both.
Yep.
Because you don't feel the closeness of people that makes the difference in church, I think.
The other thing you don't get is coffee hour and a few jokes and.
No, but you can sit there in your pajamas if you prefer.
That's an advantage. And I think sometimes when the weather's bad or it's just a tough day for you and you realize sometimes you almost get a better experience in your pajamas with a cup of coffee and a stream than doing the drudgery,
But that to me is part of Sunday dressing a little better than we do through the week. So I still, when I watch it on TV, I still dress in my Sunday best.
Let's talk a little bit about something that happened here at Trinity. When my daughter, who's 32, was about 13 or 14, she wanted all the ladies to wear hats on Easter Sunday.
Yes.
And so she went around trying to get, after she'd sold them all Girl Scout cookies for years, said, let's all wear hats on Easter Sunday. And she got some negative feedback from some of the older ladies saying, Trinity is a church where we don't do that. We're a low church. We don't wear hats on. We fought to get rid of that in the 50s, 60s. Any thoughts about getting dressed up and going to church and how we've dressed here at Trinity down through the years, etc.?
Yes.
I don't know what I want, but
We have one, and she's still a parishioner here.
Oh.
Beth Johns always appeared, even though nobody else had a hat on Easter Sunday, Beth had a hat on.
Yeah.
And we look forward to seeing her.
Yeah. Well, I think we should have a dress-up day here at Trinity sometime, no?
No.
Someone told me that when they were a kid at the cathedral, which it sounds like you were, the ushers wore white gloves and tails.
That was so long ago, Bill, I can't remember.
Okay, so that thing's all gone. So when'd you come out to Trinity?
Well, we lived, my husband and the family lived in East Deering.
Yeah.
Now, closer to that would have been St. Peter's.
Yeah.
But we tried out here, that's not the right word, I
know
guess,
what you're saying.
But here, and there was a different atmosphere here.
Yeah.
Even coming in the first time, there seemed to be this almost loving atmosphere.
Yep.
And I have found that through the vestry, through the altar guild. Just the people here are so welcoming and so forth. And I remember the first time we came, Ruth Barnard apparently sat back of us, and she greeted us and said who she was and welcomed us to the church, and that did it. We decided this was the place for us.
Now, were the kids alive when you came here?
Oh yes.
They're all. You had 3 kids in tow, right?
Yes. Nancy would have been 10.
Okay.
Bob was 8, and Ralph was 6.
Now, I have a bone to pick with you about the way you raised Bob, because I'm working about 15 years ago, and Bob said he wanted to see me at work, which was very unusual, but I think a great deal of him to this day. I said, sure, come on down, 11 o'clock. I met him at the door, and I knew he was going to ask me to be on vestry.
Oh.
Which, kill me, right? I don't, vestry, right? I'd been on vestry. The meetings are long and tough and tedious. And he asked me, he said he was from the vestry. He wanted me to be senior warden. And he said, quote, I'm calling you out. We want you to step up and be senior warden. And, coming from Bob, but also just the word, we're calling you out. I knew I should be doing more. And even though I was very busy, and so I became senior warden for 6 glorious years, enjoyed every minute of it. It was all, roses and blue sky.
Of course.
But I'll always, that'll be my memory of Bob, that he kind of got me going a little bit more. And it was actually a very good thing for me, and I hope it was a good thing for the church. And Ralph, who's deceased, he used to count the money every week.
Yes.
And so we'd all go into coffee hour, we'd be hooting and hollering and stuffing pastry in our mouth. And Ralph would be, and when Ralph passed away, I said, all right, we'll get 4 guys, each will count 1 week a month. And I don't know how I made it for the 5 or 6 years that I made it. I mean, the service he did for the church was wonderful.
Yes, yeah. Well, he enjoyed it. He enjoyed it. We all did. The whole family is, and therefore the children are still coming to church. Yeah.
What are your memories of the McLellan kids at Trinity?
I don't know as I have too many memories of them at church, except that both Bob and Ralph were vestrymen.
Yes.
Nancy lived in Massachusetts.
Right.
So she wasn't involved in things here,
Yep.
except when she would come to visit us and so forth. And she always came to church when she was in Portland. But the boys, Ralph was in a small junior choir
Yep.
here. They weren't either boy or any of them were acolytes or anything like that. But
How come? They're active guys.
I don't know.
Huh.
I don't know.
Wouldn't be hard. They could come back. Bob could come back and make that up if he wanted to.
You're
And
not going to get him out of South Carolina.
no, I don't think so. But I know that he's here occasionally. So,
Oh, yes,
you know,
yes.
we value these guys. Now, these are Episcopalians. I'll say for the folks that don't know the McLellan family, I mean, they grew up in the church and stayed with the church, and they were here and became church leaders. They went from boys to men, and Nancy, I don't remember Nancy being here. Did she, what's Nancy's occupation? And tell me what became of her.
She was she worked for the Atlantic
AT&T, yeah.
to begin with, but then she went for a company that was, she was a project manager with telephones and so forth.
Yep.
And she's retired now.
No.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I'm glad to know that. That's good, because I'm retired. And,
Well, of course, so is Bob, and Ralph would be if he was still with us.
yeah.
And Cindy, his wife, still comes to church.
Cindy's in the choir?
Cindy's in the choir and so forth, yeah.
Who have some of your great friends been here at Trinity?
Oh, my goodness. Well, Edith McCormick, Joan Newcomb,
Yeah.
Dorothy Lomas, certainly Joan Delator,
Yeah.
Anne Shea.
Now that you've left out a few, I'll move on. Who are some of the better rectors that you liked, other than Peter?
Well, there were several. I think Holroyd was one of them.
You know, David comes up big when we ask that.
Yes. Well, he was only an interim.
Right.
And that was a shame, and they obviously do not allow them to be he was retired, I suppose, and therefore was the interim.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was funny. He would tell jokes while he was giving a sermon and so forth. Yeah.
He wore his Thai law jersey under his white robe that day.
He was a great Red Sox fan and so forth. So.
I met him at the 1986 World Series at Shea Stadium in New York.
Oh,
I was standing there getting ready to do a live shot, and this wisecracking guy, hey, Bill Green, I'm David Holroyd. I'm at York Church, and hey, good to meet an Episcopalian.
Yes. Betty Lamaya was a dear friend.
She's our only woman rector, right?
Yes.
Was that special to you to have a woman in the pulpit? Did that mean anything to you as a woman?
Well, just the thought that yes, a woman can do this.
Sure.
And she was a really good minister to us and so forth. She had, I think, retired, and my sister had to come and live with me because she had Alzheimer.
Yeah.
And I would bring my sister Marion to church with me, and Betty was very kind to her and so forth. Now, Betty had retired, and Marion died, and had originally lived in Cambridge and was to be buried in Cambridge. So Betty agreed to come and came to Cambridge and was the minister for the service at the graveside.
Isn't that wonderful?
And she was so kind to us and so forth.
I got to do a graphic. We sometimes have pictures for these, but we only have one for this one. But I hold in my hand, I don't know what's called, a kneeler.
Oh, yes.
What's it called, a kneeler?
Yes.
And it's beautifully embroidered.
Yes.
And I didn't do it.
Oh, yes. And Betty Lamaya was the instigator of this and did a lot of the different emblems on it and so forth.
Yep.
But she had quite a crew of people that worked with her, all the women in the church that were, what do you call them, embroiderers?
Embroiderers, yeah.
And did all these beautiful, and we worry sometimes when the young people get up on them with their shoes.
Oh, yeah.
And we try to accommodate children, knowing that they're important to the church.
Knowing that we're old now, saying, look, young man, you get off that kneeler.
Yes, you're getting it dirty.
That's the one thing that he'll remember about Trinity in 70 years, right? But,
yes.
Yeah, no, these are beautiful. And I think of Betty, but I haven't been to the altar rail on my knees in a couple of years now because of COVID.
Oh, I
What
know.
are your thoughts about COVID and how it's affected the church?
Oh, I think it's terrible, really, that we had to go through all this. But it's something we've got to cope with, and I think we're going to be coping with it by having a shot every year, for like we seem to get for very many things nowadays.
Yep.
But it's not helping us too much, I don't think.
How do you think Trinity has impacted your life? Do you think that it's made you love your neighbor and those things that Peter tries to teach us?
Yes.
Can you tell me how? Do you see something in your kids, maybe in the way they are, as opposed to people who were not churched?
Maybe I try to be, and maybe they do too, and I think I see that helpful to other people.
Yep.
Accepting of other people.
Yep.
And I think they do that too. So maybe that's the answer.
I think it is. I know when I came here after a couple of years, we came from the cathedral. Married in '86, we came here in like '93. And I said to Pam about a year and a half later, 6 of the best guys I know go to Trinity. One of them was Ralph. Because at least the guys that go to Trinity, they're trying.
Yeah.
They may not be the best and the brightest, but we all try like heck.
Yeah.
As the yard sale is going to prove on June 10th. When's the yard sale, Peter? 11th of June. Get over here and buy our old stuff. But you try. I mean, people that come to church are good people because they're working and they're trying.
And with the Christmas fair and so forth, and all these things that we try to do and seem to be successful.
And right now, I think we're doing quite well, and I'm excited that Heather's going to be with us for 3 years.
Yes, that's good news.
That's great news.
Yes.
Give me a couple of secrets about Trinity Church. What do we do well, or is there a place in here that's special to you, or where do you sit and why, or give me a Trinity story.
We do seem to sit in the same pew.
Yes.
And I warned the children when we were coming this past Easter. Did we? No, Mother's Day we
Yeah.
came. And I said, you know, probably the pew won't be there that we always go to. But I think, and it wasn't, and Bob and Judy were here before Nancy and me, and they were nearer to the front. But at that point, I guess I need that because I don't hear as well.
Yeah.
And so you change your pew. But just it was automatic to go into this one pew. And
Yep.
so we always did that.
Where was that?
Well, it was about 5 pews back
Yeah, on the,
on that side,
yeah.
yes.
Because I sat
The
6 or 7
Epistle
pews
side,
back.
I guess it's.
You know who else was over there? Mert Henry was over there.
Yes.
He was in our
yes,
neighborhood. I used to
yes,
sit 6 or 7 rows back.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, look at the stained glass window.
Yeah. I always think of Mert Henry in that we would come to the Ash Wednesday service
Yeah,
with certainly other people. And when they started giving the ashes, which we never used to do,
who, we at Trinity?
any church, I don't think.
Okay, yeah,
Merton Henry and I were the only ones that did not go up for ashes.
oh, no kidding.
Well, I grew up as what they don't like the wordage nowadays, low church.
Right,
And you didn't do a lot of crossing yourself,
yeah,
bowing at the
Yeah.
altar and so forth, or having ashes. And so that was somewhat foreign to me. But he and I were the only ones that never did that. And to this day, I don't, well, of course, at this point, I don't get out on the
yeah.
Ash Wednesday, but it probably would be the same way. I would not do it.
We were here for ashes on Ash Wednesday, and Larry Weeks was big into ashes, you know.
Oh,
and he, I don't know, it's burned palms, right? And
Yes.
and they put a little water in there or something, and he, you know, and he hit some elderly church lady with it looked like he took a Marks-a-Lot marker and put a
Yes,
cross on her
yes,
forearm. I'm thinking, she's never going to get that one off. You know, it was really funny.
But I don't feel that I'm being disrespectful.
No.
To me, it is not necessary.
I think one of the problems that the church struggles with, at least when I was the senior warden, was that kind of thing, that interpretation of the various things we're
Yes,
doing.
yes.
If you get 70% on board, you're good. You know, should we be doing this? Should we be not doing that?
Yeah,
And, you know, who doesn't get enough credit? How about the altar guild?
Now, the Altar Guild was my favorite. I worked on that and so forth. There's just, to me, a loving feeling when you come into both church, but particularly when I would come to the Altar Guild meetings and so forth. And I still have that feeling.
Yeah.
And I can't really explain it too well at all, but people have been so good to me and to my family
Yeah.
through all kinds of situations. Yeah.
Well,
So-
we're proud to have you as a member of our congregation. We appreciate your big smile whenever we see it. Those kids that you brought here, even Bob and what he did to me. And thank you so much for all you've done for Trinity and for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
I've been talking with Barbara McLellan. I hope that you'll kind of check back with us. We're going to try to do one of these every week and learn a little bit more about the history of Trinity and the people who are the church and that make it the church. So thank you very much and have a wonderful day.